What's up, baseball coaches? Let's talk about how you speak to your players and some of the things you should be considering in the way that you communicate with your team. So the number one thing that you should really be thinking about long-term as a youth baseball coach is, how do I make my players feel? All these different things factor in to creating either a really positive, encouraging environment for your players where they feel like they can be more, they can do big things, they can accomplish their big goals in baseball, or feeling like this person just belittled me, berated me, was short with me, was not patient, and made me feel like I was less than. I've had the gamut of coaches, some coaches that really built me up, some coaches that built me up with harsher tones of voices. I've had some coaches that tore me down. So let me give you a couple pieces of advice that I think will be helpful no matter what age you coach. Number one, watch your body language as a coach. You can communicate much more with one eye roll or one arms crossed, leaning back, throwing your hands up, than everything you've said to a player in a given week, especially from the dugout while you're watching a kid pitch. They make an error at shortstop. They miss the cutoff man for the third time in the outfield. They're going to look in the dugout for your approval or disapproval, and they're going to see it and they're going to feel it. So you just have to be really mindful. And look, no one's perfect with this. I know I've had moments in my past. I'm not saying I was a perfect coach where I was just like, oh my God, did we really just throw a 2-0 curveball to fall behind a 3-0? You know, all these different things. Sometimes you're just like, you can't help it. You're a human. You might be really good at filtering what comes out of your mouth. But again, the gestures, the eye rolls, the hands being thrown up, the body language that can really communicate some negative stuff that you might not be aware of that really put your players on edge. Because if your shortstop makes an error, or say they make a second error in the inning and they look up and coach is just, that's going to set the stage for error number 3 and for them to be tense and play poor baseball for the rest of the game. So just be careful and really be mindful about your body language. Number 2, be really careful with absolutes in the way you phrase things. And I have definitely fallen prey to this in the past. I've screwed this up. It's really easy to look at a young kid and be like, hey, you're not going to be a shortstop, but you could be a second baseman, you could be a third baseman. What we really need to say is, you're not a starting shortstop yet, or you don't have the command to be a starting pitcher yet. If you throw more strikes, you could be our closer, but you're not there yet. Yet implies a growth mindset that with diligence and hard work and learning from failure, you can be more than you are. And look, I've had tons of players over the years who were this pudgy little 12-year-old, and then I would go away and play a season of pro baseball. I would come back, and this kid has sprouted up literally 8 inches and is strong and is athletic and is nothing like his. You have to be careful about not limiting kids and forcing them into this box where they have this belief that they can't be a certain caliber when we really have no idea what they're capable of, especially as they're growing and, you know, hitting puberty and all these other things. So always tack a yet on and really be considerate of how you're explaining kids' current ability level compared to what they could be in the future. Real quick, want to support my channel and get more member-only videos that are not available here on my public YouTube channel? Click below the join button and you can access my membership. My channel membership gives you access to tons of perks and lots of videos that are here on YouTube but are unpublished. Number 3, think about the tone of your voice when you yell out to the field. I've seen this where coaches sometimes are just carelessly rude and shaming to their players in a way that just doesn't really make sense. Like, you can yell out to your center fielder, like, hey, 3 steps back. Or you could yell out to your center fielder, why are you standing there? Get back. Sometimes we just get fed up. We get frustrated as coaches. And I've seen this where it's like, you just need him to move. Why did you have to shame him publicly when you yelled out? As a side note, I don't think you should be yelling almost anything out to the field. I tried to give explanations and instructions in the dugout. And when they went out there, I would give hand signs to the outfield if I really need them to move. But I try to keep it as a recital. If they don't figure it out right now, let that ball go over their head. Guess what? They're going to learn next time that they are probably out of position. A lot of coaches will say, failure is the best teacher. You got to learn from failure. You got to grow from it. But then these same coaches try to control every aspect of the game. And if a kid's even slightly out of position or slightly doing the wrong thing on the field, they have to yell out at that moment and correct them at every moment in the game. And that to me is really frustrating, because how are they going to learn from failure if you're correcting every single thing that they're doing? Let the game teach them what failure looks like. If your shortstop is playing too far in, they're just out of position, let that base hit squeak by them. And then be like, hey, you see that ground ball that went past you? It wasn't going to hit that hard, right? But you just didn't have any range because you were playing like 6 steps too close. Make sure you're at the correct depth. We talked about this. Normal depth is, 9 feet past the cutoff or whatever it is. But you were playing about halfway, And that's why that routine ground ball became a hit. And they'll say, oh yeah, that's right. I could have fielded that if I was, back 3 more steps. Let the game teach failure. So as a coach, be really mindful about what you do yell and the inflection in your voice if you have to give instructions during a game. But in general, I would say try to be as hands-off as you can and let the game teach them via failure. And then use those teachable moments to help them in the dugout learn what to do next time. My next piece of advice for youth baseball coaches on their tone of voice is, are you modeling the kind of conflict resolution that you would want them to take into the real world later on? Whether it's you're dealing with parents, whether it's dealing with the other team who might be unruly, they might be abusive, they might be behaving really disrespectfully, whether it's dealing with the umpires, or whether it's the way you deal with your players, are you modeling the conflict resolution, the tone of voice, kindness? Are you modeling those things for your players? Or are you showing them that you can be rude with people you disagree with, that you can be mean to people who aren't doing their job as well as you think they should be, right? People treat umpires like dirt, and they're trying their hardest, and also they're not professionals. They're no better at umpiring than your 12-year-olds are at baseball. But yet, you don't talk to your 12-year-olds the way that you talk to umpires sometimes. So we need to treat everyone on the field with respect. And the question is, are you modeling the kind of character traits that you would want these kids to develop learning from you? We all know, like in my family, we have this story of my brother at like 3 years old walking around going, where are my damn keys? Where are my damn car keys? With his little Fisher-Price, like red, plastic car. And he learned that from my dad, who got really mad when he couldn't find his car keys one day. My dad was a wonderful man, but this was just like one moment where he learned a negative behavior that he saw because he was an impressionable 3-year-old, right? And that's always been a funny family story and also a good lesson that like kids pick up on much more than we realize. You have to ask yourself, if kids just took on all of my traits and the way that I talk to everyone on this field, would I be embarrassed by what I see them exhibiting as future behavior, or would I be really happy? Really think about how you're interacting with everyone on the field. What are you modeling and what are you teaching these other kids that they should do as future adults? And lastly, as a youth baseball coach, do you call kids out and publicly shame them on the field or in front of their peers in the dugout? Or do you call them in and check in and see, hey, maybe there's something else going on that I'm not aware of that led to this behavior, that led to this meltdown, that led to this kid, yelling at an umpire, being disrespectful, whatever it was. There's lots of times when kids on your team are going to let you down with their conduct, and you'll say, that is not one of our team values. That is not how I taught you. But do you call that kid out in front of everyone and shame them? Or do you call them in and say, hey, what's going on? That's not like you. Like, you're better than that. Is everything okay? Right? Or just pulling them aside and be like, look, I know you've had a rough day. You made a couple errors and now you're taking out another teammate, but that's not who we are. And I expect more from you. So especially with kids who are teenagers and older, they're going through lots of personal stuff. You don't know what's going on in their lives. Maybe someone broke up with them earlier that day. Maybe they're getting bullied online. Maybe they're just feeling really bad about themselves because social media is piling on even as they achieve things in baseball. There's always a million people better than them on social media, and they constantly feel like a failure. There's a lot of things that can factor in for a player having an outburst or something that's out of character on the field. So I really urge you to, instead of calling people out in public and shaming them, to think about, how can I call them in and try to figure out what's beneath the surface, or just have a private discussion that doesn't make this whole thing worse, that shows some empathy for that kid and just how challenging baseball and all these relationships can be. All right, so thanks for watching. Hopefully there was something in here that maybe resonated with you, but also I'd love to hear your comments. What do you really value as a coach? How do you try to talk to your players? If you have anything to contribute in the discussion, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you here in the next video.